Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about three main points, but I'm sure I'll drone on about some other topics. So many questions have been coming in, and I've done my best to answer most of them that I've seen, whether it be on Facebook or off the channel. I'm trying to get you the information that you guys want to know about. If I missed your question, I apologize. One of the questions that has come up quite a bit is about 1S batteries. So this is the 3D printed piece that it comes with, and it goes right in here, and then you use two 1S batteries like these, and these are the batteries I recommend. I put them in the links in the review video, but I'll also put them in this one if you're wondering about the batteries I suggest you use. These are it. That's a question that's come up a lot. So we have this little piece down in here. I thought I covered this in the primary video, but it seems like it was missed. You'll see that goes through kind of loose. This tightens up when you put the top piece, the top battery in. So now you can see it's snugly in there. They don't really come out. They're not taut. So pretty well designed little 3D piece. Mine came with two of those. Hopefully your package does in retail as well. The next question I have is about running 1S. Now I didn't fly at 1S, and for the longest time I couldn't figure out, when I thought about it, why would you want to do that? And I finally think I came around to why you'd want to do 1S, and that has to do with the inside flight, I think, or just the making the flight more gentle. Personally, I don't think it'll be of much use to you, but you can do it. Initially, when I answered a few of those questions about this, there was nothing indicating that it was 1S compatible, and when I asked Jason from Happy Model about it, he didn't get right back to me. There's a time zone difference there, but eventually he did get back and he said, yeah, you can do 1S. And actually I think he or someone else posted where they took a little piece like this. It's basically a battery connector end. I didn't strip this out of battery. I got a package of leads. I don't know why I bought the wrong leads, but I've soldered together the positive and the negative. Then I put a little bit of heat shrink over the end. So what you would do is just plug this into either one of these. So that bridges that connection, and then you plug in your 1S battery and you go fly. Now, on that topic of 1S batteries, I've gotten this question a few times as well. Let me get this out of there. What size of batteries fit? This is the BWOOP 75 frame. That's its origins. That's where it came from. Many people were putting their Snapper 6s and Snapper 7s, or maybe just the Snapper 7 hardware inside this frame. And yeah, I broke another frame. I was out flying today, and you'll see it. I banged off a tree. It was not warm. That's the downside of plastics in the cool air. It was about 52 degrees, but I think they said the real feel was 48, so kind of cool. Anyways, so this battery, I believe, will fit. Yeah, it slides in there nicely. So if you want to do 1S and you want a big battery, there's an option. Here's a 450, another GNB. It's again high volt. I use high volt batteries on all my 1S stuff. You can see that fits in there just fine as well. If you want to do two of these, you're going to either have to rig something up to secure it, or you're going to have to run a rubber band around it, or you're going to have to come up with an interesting 3D printed piece that does something similar. Maybe it holds onto the front and the rear and it's thinner, and you can slide your batteries through that way. But so these do fit natively. The only one that doesn't really fit natively is this one that I have. This is MyLipo. They make good batteries. Don't bother with the C rating stuff. I think MyLipo tends to be more honest, and everybody else tends to use those numbers as marketing. C ratings are a way of identifying, but not a way of rating, in my opinion. Not anymore. But this one, while it does fit, it's pretty dang snug. Yeah, you can get it through there, but I wouldn't suggest that too much. So that's kind of 1S batteries, but not in flight. Again, if you're asking me about which batteries to buy, I would get these. The Beta FPV 300s seem good, but again, I have to reserve my judgment because I haven't had enough cycles on them. I think I've had maybe 10 or 12 cycles on those now. As far as those wanting to fly 1S, I would encourage you to go ahead and try 2S at the very least. I think there's probably two issues that you're looking to overcome. And one is the speed. You want to fly a little bit slower. And just use your camera angle. Just push that camera down nice and flat like that. And just cruise. You still have the thrust and the responsibility of 2S. With 1S, and especially those much larger batteries, it's going to change the flight characteristics a lot, and you might be disappointed. I wasn't a big fan of the Snapper 7. It was better when you put it on a plastic frame because it dropped about 4 grams. but that gives you a little idea about weight and how important it is with these little micros. Something else you can do if you're having issues with your throttle management, maybe you're bouncing off the floor and the ceiling, and I understand that can be a lot to get used to, especially when you have something so light and powerful with a pretty nice weight to thrust ratio. Brendan Guffin wrote in the 2S Power Roop group, I think, no, it was in the Beta FPV group, some commands, and I'll include the commands here on screen. These are typed into the CLI and Betaflight. So you type them just like you see on the screen, and then you also hit enter between each line, and then you end with typing save and hit enter again. That will then reboot your machine. What this does is it reduces your throttle resolution to 75%. Your stick still moves the full range, but you don't end up using that very top 25% of the throttle resolution. It just controls that down a little bit. That's a pretty good idea to try. One thing about doing that is you need to keep in mind if a new version of Betaflight comes out and you like to try the newest version all the time, you need to remember that command as well. Of course, it'll be here in the video for you to reference if you need to. I think that's probably a better idea. Another idea that I would consider to be better for controlling the throttle management instead of dropping this down to 2S, or excuse me, instead of dropping this down to 1S and a big battery, would be if you're thumbing, try pinching. You know, 2 fingers are much more sensitive. You can control things a lot better with 2 fingers than you can with 1. I've said this many times. My thumbs aren't great. You know, I played baseball through college. My thumbs are kind of brute force, but these fingers are much more tactile, at least for me. I used to use them to, you know, feel the seam and find a high seam on a baseball and get my finger placed just where I wanted it and apply pressure to the ball upon release and get the ball to do different things. And I think you should try it. Even if it feels foreign to you, try it. If you can, maybe hook your radio up to a simulator and try it there, just so you get some crash-free practice. But that may be ultimately the best thing you can possibly do is to just try it out. There are a lot of people who thumb and a lot of people who are great at it, but I'm seeing a lot of pilots who are also still pinchers. So it's worth noting. So you got 3 things there for 1S that you can do. Drop your camera angle, use those commands that Brendan posted on Facebook, and then the last thing would be to just try pinching over thumbing. All right, gone on way too long about those little things. One more thing to cover here before we get to the flight footage. I've also been asked about this frame. This is the Beta FPV frame. I believe this is the frame they're calling the OG, and it's not. You'll notice that the hole is in here is different than the V2 that they're now selling. So people were asking about taking the components from the Mobula 7 frame, which is the BWhoop 75 frame, and putting it in the Beta FPV. And you can mount the motors, that's one thing, but you're going to have to drill them out. It does spin, but it does not spin freely. So of course, even if you get the motors to spin on throttle up, it will get gummy and probably do some sticky damage to your motor. So that does mount to those holes that you see there. So on the new V2 frame that has the larger cutout for the motor hole, it should be just fine. You can also see from the bottom that I've mounted the flight controller, and we probably knew that would fit. All I had to do here in the very, very back was file that circle down. You see in the front how it's a circle, and in the back it's more of a half circle. Had to file that down to clear the USB. The problem with this is the standoffs just aren't tall enough, and I pulled the rubber grommet off of here just so you could see the standoffs are down inside here. And so if you look at the Mobula 7, you get camera angle based upon the canopy being up off the board. So if your camera sits down too close to the board, you're not going to get much angle on your camera because it's going to hit. You can see how it comes below the level of the canopy. Hopefully you can see that. There we go, it's a better angle. We need to figure out a way to maybe make an adapter. I don't know, I'm spitballing. If you want to swap the things out, it doesn't work natively. I don't think on the V2 they've extended the standoffs. As far as I can tell from the pictures, this is the Happy model or the BWhoop 75 frame. Hopefully you get an idea of how far those stand up. And in the Beta FPV frame, the V2, and I believe the OG. The OG is what I have here. It's kind of funny they call it OG. Those standoffs don't extend up nearly enough. So maybe a 3D printed mounter, or you'll have to get creative if you want to do that swap. I do think that because the number of struts that Beta FPV has in their frame, this will probably last longer than this one will. Obviously, I've been going through these left and right. Where is it? Oh, I actually glued this one already. So, you know, that's going to be fine for a long time. It depends on how I fly it, though, because I've enjoyed that one, so I've been flying it fairly hard. But anyways, that is something to keep in mind when it comes to mounting your Happy model components in the beta FPV frame, is that the motors will mount. They'll probably mount better in the upgraded frame, the Pro version, I think they're calling it, or the V2, than the original OG. And then they have some additional protection on the props. They have little notches out here, so this is the old one. But we do have some things to overcome as far as mounting that canopy, which is also important to flying the machine. The next thing you need to know about the frame is the battery trays. Well, I'll flip this one over so you can see it here a little bit. And this battery tray is different. See how it's got a bigger opening down there? It's not so natively flat. And so that makes our 450 battery a little bit tougher to get in there. I think the 450 will go in. You know, it does go in. It's pretty taut. I don't think the 550 will fit very well. I'm actually just trying it for the first time here on camera. It does. Maybe the 550 is just longer, so you can use these. The problem is if you want to go 2S, you can't really do 2S this way, and you can't really do 2S this way. The 3D printed piece that comes in the bottom of the Mobula, you can't just swap that in here. It doesn't natively fit. So we need something else designed, and I bet there is a guy named Robert Thompson out there who can design something that is just kind of like an over and under stack or a dual stack for something like this. I don't know. If you think something like a 3D printed piece like this that kind of splits things up to where you could use this frame more readily for 2S batteries, 1S batteries, let me know down in the comments. I'm sure Robert will pay attention, and he'll design something up for us if there's enough feedback as to that product. If not, maybe you will take it on. Again, I give you my little PSE. I think we need to tip designers. Throw them a quarter, throw them a nickel, throw them a dime. Set up your account, tie it to your, I know people don't like to do that, but the fact that somebody has spent time and effort into designing something that allows us to have more fun. So if that fun's only worth 50 cents, then so be it. But tip your designers, please. So we have to redesign this. So that's the last thing I have to say. I think I've covered everything that has come up recently. Another thing we want to jump into is somebody asked me about angle flying, and this flight you're looking at isn't a full flight because I thought I would just show you the pertinent parts so I can keep this video short. So I fly around, and I'm not good at angle mode. Like I said, I'm very accustomed to acro, so I'm really actually concentrating quite hard during this flight to make it at least somewhat smooth and watchable. But I'm flying around just fine. I get to a point where I hover it, and then I just kind of hold it there. And it holds real nice and steady. And this is with bent up props. I still haven't changed props. I'm using the same props, been through all those crashes, and this was after the frame broke again. So it seems as though angle mode with this flight controller, with this version of Betaflight, and with the rubber grommets that they have mounting the flight controller, it's all good. So angle mode shouldn't be a problem. You shouldn't get that drift. If you do happen to get drift, check your motors for hairs. Also make sure your stick ends or your stick endpoints are spot on, and that at the center you get 1500, and at the bottom you get 1000, at the top you get 2000. That'll make sure that the flight controller knows when you're at 1500 and it feels like it's centered on your stick, that you get 1500 and you get nice and flat and level. So then the last thing we're going to talk about are the dives. So I actually this week has been kind of busy at work, and that's one of the many reasons why I have ebbs and flows to my video content creation. Is sometimes I don't have as much time to fly over lunch as I'd like to, but I got a sunny day finally. The grass, there's a puddle still back there, so I'm a little bit leery, but I just go out and do a bunch of different dives. I didn't count them yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's 25 dives and various sorts. I'm trying to do various sorts at least. I just try to show you, the beta FPV products, they had a little bit of an issue with the yaw washout, they were calling it. There is a development there as well. I think Jan here at the channel, we see Jan Domingo here at the channel. I think he was the first one to try props in, so the props rotate the traditional way in towards the nose and the tail, and he tried it that way and it said it flew better, but it does look like it drops an arm, which is kind of back to the old problem of ducted brushless whoops, is that when you get going at speed and you make a turn, that usually a rear or arm on the inside of the turn then drops suddenly and then has to catch back up. So there is some magic to the Happy model version, and I've been asked this a few times. I can't necessarily pinpoint it. It would take a combination of trying a bunch of different frames and a bunch of different parts to see if we could actually find what the result was of making this yaw washout go away. So I've got 2 flights here. I actually did 3 or 4, but a couple others were just cruising. There is a slight breeze, so that's something to note, and I'm not necessarily trying to do this smooth or nicely. I'm not trying to put together an entertaining flight. I am out there merely to accomplish the one thing of trying to dive in different ways and using different angles, whether that's a lower angle on the camera as far as my dive goes, or an angle that's a little bit higher. So just trying to change the aerodynamics of the ducks as I dive. And at no point did I feel out of control. I know I said this in the last video, but I'm by nature a skeptic, and I can understand where if I say, well, I did this in 2 flights and I can't find that flight footage, well, prove it, you know. I want to see it, and so I thought it was important for me to go back out and do this stuff again so that you could see it. It was also a much sunnier day, and unfortunately in my review video it was very overcast and cloudy because, again, I had to go out and catch a quick spot where we didn't have rain between showers, and it was very unfriendly to the camera. The camera does okay, I would say. It's on par with what we see for the most part. It's not the very best micro CMOS camera out there by any stretch, but as far as a good light camera, it does all right. You know, putting a Caddx EOS 2 in this would be better, probably. Maybe even the Runcam Nano. There might be other CMOS cameras out that we can try that would be an improvement. But again, this is an all-in-one, so if you just plan on changing out the camera, you're going to have to kind of do some modding for that extra space that's built in there, but I don't think that would be a problem. It's better to have more space than you need than not enough, of course, right? I think that was all I wanted to accomplish in this video, and I'm going to let this second flight just completely run all the way out. You can stay and watch it if you like. If you don't want to, of course, I wouldn't be offended at all. I will be doing one more video, and I should talk about this a little bit. I'll be doing a comparison between the Beta 75, the Beta 65, and the Happy model. I know King Kong has theirs coming out soon, so I'll be doing that comparison video, and I've got already kind of a little list that I've built up, and so we'll go through that list. It won't be a flying video, it'll just be a talkie video. The other thing that I have to cover is I was asked that, or it was indicated that it was conspicuous that I didn't compare them within that video. And how I do review videos, I tend to focus on that machine. I may make late in the video some judgments about one machine compared to another, or what have you, whether it be motors or components or something like that. I may compare them, but I usually don't say this one is just better and you should ignore this one. If I've got a bad product, I'll just tell you not to buy this one. I won't necessarily tell you to buy something else. Typically what I do in review videos, I don't want to influence your purchase. I want to show you what the machine is like. I want to tell you about my experience with it. And then I would like for you to be able to have that information in the video to where you can make a choice for yourself. I don't want to be in sales. I just want to fly and have fun. Oftentimes, very, very late in the video, I will leave my opinion about the machine. And I do it late because most people who watch YouTubes, according to the analytics, don't make it past 5 minutes. So if I have a 15 to 22 minute video, it will probably come relatively close to the end. You know, it'll come in the last 3 to 5 minutes where I'll give my opinion. Every once in a while, I do feel very strongly about one, and I'll say something at the very beginning, but otherwise it's generally at the end. So that's my philosophy on things. I just understand that when you're giving your hard-earned cash for something that it's important, and I'm a little bit sketched out by the fact that you might base your purchasing decisions on what I say. So if you do want my opinion, it will generally be at the end. So that's how I review. We've probably run out of footage by now. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.